Take a few deep inhales and exhales. And try to let go of any frustrations or events that may have happened to you today. Just try to find a moment of stillness in your body, in your mind, and focus in on your breath. What's the quality of your breathing? Is it nice and smooth, or are you breathing really short and shallow? On each inhale, try to lengthen it just a little longer and hold it at the top of your breath before exhaling fully. On your next inhale, try to inhale for 4 counts and hold it for 4. And exhale for 4 counts. Before inhaling, pause, count 4, and then continue again with your breath. Inhaling for 4, pausing at the top for 4. Exhale for 4 counts. And pause before inhaling again. Go ahead and do that 4-part breath at your own pace for a few moments. And then just come into a natural rhythm of your breath. Notice if you're feeling anything different than when you started. Maybe your breath has changed, the quality, the texture. On your next inhale, bring your knees into your chest. If you're laying down on your back, rock side to side. Stretch your arms overhead, stretch your legs out long. And then hug both knees into your chest. Maybe start to rotate your knees out and in, finding some nice movement into your hips. And then rotate that. And find stillness in the middle. When you're ready, come up to a seated position. You can cross your shins, ground down through your sits bones, and sit up nice and tall. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, fold forward. If you'd like to deepen your stretch, you can start to walk your hands out a little further, or if the stretch is too intense, you can start to walk your hands back towards your body. Find a place that is comfortable for you and stay here for 3 more cycles of breath. Slowly walk your hands back towards your body and sit up nice and tall. Bring your arms out to a T. Bring your right arm across your chest. Hook your left arm under your right for a nice shoulder stretch. You can gaze over your right shoulder, or you can keep your head straight, whichever feels good for you. And stay here for 3 more cycles of breath. And release. Bring both arms out to a T. Bring your left arm across your body. Hook your right arm under your left. Hug in. Gaze can be straight, or you can look over your left shoulder. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. And release your hands back down to the mat. Place your right hand on the mat and extend your left arm overhead. You can start to tilt to the right side. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. And slowly rise back up to center. Keep your left hand down on the mat. Extend your right arm overhead. Gaze up towards the ceiling. If you have shoulder issues, you can also just cross this arm over the body and rest your hand on your left shoulder. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. And rise back up to center. Bring your legs out wide. Remember to ground down through your sit bones. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, turn your body and fold over towards your right toes. Hands can come to the sole of your foot, to your shin, or down on the mat, whichever is good and comfortable for you and your body. If your left hip is coming off the mat, you can back off by bringing your hands down towards your shin or your thigh. Make sure that that's grounded down. Soften into the stretch of your right hamstring. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. And start to rise back up to center. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, turn towards your left toes and fold over them. Reach for the sole of your foot, your shin, or leave your hands on the mat. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And slowly start to come back to center. You can close your legs together. Bring your right knee in towards your chest. Step your right foot over your left thigh. And you can bring your left hand to the outside of your right thigh, or you can bring your elbow here to the inside. And we're going to bring our right hand behind us and twist. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. And come back to center. Extend your right leg out long, maybe shake that out. Bring your left knee into your chest. Step your left foot over your right thigh. Again, you can stay here, bring your right hand to the outside edge of your left thigh, and bring your left hand behind you and twist here. Or you have the option to bring your right elbow to the left thigh. On each inhale, grow tall through the spine. And on each exhale, twist a little deeper. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And release. Uncross your left leg, stretch it out long. You can shake your legs. Inhale, reach up and exhale, fold forward. Stay here for 3 more cycles of breath. Slowly sit up nice and tall and come over to tabletop. You can start to circle your hips if that feels good. And circle the opposite direction. And come back to stillness in the middle. Extend your right leg out behind you. You have the option to stay here, or you can lift your leg up off the mat. Option to stay here, or extend your left arm out in front of you. Hug in through your core. Find your balance. Stay here for 3 more cycles of breath. And bring your knee back down to the mat, hand down to the mat. Extend your left leg out long. You have the option to stay here or lift the leg. Option to stay here or extend the right arm out in front of you. Hug in through the midline, tighten the core, find your stability. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And bring your knee back down to the mat, hand down to the mat. We're gonna set up for side plank. So there's a few variations you can take here. You have the option to ground down through your right hand, right knee, and kick your foot back. You can stay here, or you can bring your arm overhead. This is one option. Also have the option to raise your foot, raise your leg to hip level. You also have the option to come into full side plank. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And bring your hand back down to the mat. Lower your knees down to the mat. Come back to tabletop. We're going to set up for side plank on the left side. So ground down through your left hand, left knee. You have the option to stay here, option to raise your leg, or come into full side plank. If you're in full side plank, you also have many variations available to you. You can bring your right foot into tree pose, lift your right leg off the left. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And bring your right hand back down to the mat, knees back down to the mat. Come back to child's pose. Head resting on the mat. Sink your hips back. And then just take a few deep breaths here. And make your way back to tabletop. Ground down through your hands. Step your right foot forward. Place it in between your hands and just start to heel toe it slightly in front of your hands. Sink your hips back, peel your toes off the mat, come into a runner stretch. Stay with me for 3 more deep breaths. Start to lower your toes down towards the mat, bend into the front leg, start to come forward into a low lunge. You should feel a nice stretch in the front of your left hip flexor. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Bring your knee back down to meet your left. Step your left foot through. Slightly start to heel toe your foot forward. Sink your hips back. Come into runner stretch. Try to square your hips here and soften in. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. Start to lower your toes back down to the mat. Bend into the front knee. Come into low lunge. Make sure your knee is in line with your ankle and not extending over your ankle. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. And bring your knee back down to meet the right. Ground down through your hands, tuck your toes. Start to push your hips up and back, come into down dog. If this is your first down dog of the day, go ahead and pedal your feet out. Maybe come up onto your toes and try to sink down towards your heels. Just take a moment to arrive here in down dog. Squeezing your shoulder blades together. Inhale, reach your right leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Ground down through your feet. Bring your hands to your hips and slowly rise up to high lunge. Bring your arms overhead. Make sure your shoulders are away from your ears. Hug into the midline. Find your stability here. Anchor your left foot down. Slowly start to settle into warrior two. Gaze over your front fingers. Knee is tracking towards your pinky toe. Flip your palm and reverse your warrior. Slowly bring your arms back to warrior two. Bring your right elbow to your right thigh and extend your left arm overhead. Come into extended side angle. You have the option to stay here, or you can bring your right hand down towards the mat, or you can bind if that's in your practice. Stay with me here for 3 more deep breaths. Slowly start to rise back up to warrior two. Windmill your hands back down to frame your front foot. Spin off your back heel. Place your left hand down on the mat. Bring your right hand to your hip. Start to twist open to the right side. Option to stay here or extend your right arm overhead. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Lower your right hand back to the mat. Step back to down dog. Lift your left leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Start to settle in here. Ground down through your feet. Bring your hands to your hips and slowly rise up to high lunge. Maybe bring your arms overhead. Find your strength and stability here. Find your balance. Anchor your left heel down. Come into warrior two. Settle in here. Reverse your front palm. Come into reverse warrior. Reach your right hand all the way down your right leg. Slowly start to rise back up to warrior two. Bend your left elbow, bring it to your left thigh. Bring your right arm overhead, come into extended side angle. You also have the option to bring your left hand back down to the mat or take a bind. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Slowly come back up to warrior two. Windmill your hands back down to frame your front foot. Spin off your back heel. Place your right hand down on the mat. Bring your left hand to your hip. Spin open to the left side. Option to stay here or extend your left arm overhead. Stay here for 3 more cycles of breath. Bring your left hand back down to frame your front foot. Step back to down dog. Come up to plank. With slow control, lower all the way down to the mat. Place your hands under your shoulders. Tuck your toes under. Squeeze your thighs and slowly start to peel your heart off the mat. Come into cobra. Tighten your glutes. Lower down to the mat. Tuck your toes and push back to down dog. Lift your right leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through to low lunge. Ground down through your soles of your feet. Rise up to high lunge. Anchor your back heel down, come into warrior two. Flip your front palm, reverse your warrior. Slowly rise back up to warrior two. Start to straighten your front leg. Hinge at the hips. Start to reach your arm forward, come down to triangle pose. Your right hand can be on the mat, reaching for your shin. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Bend into your front knee. Ground down through your feet and slowly start to rise back up to warrior two. Windmill your hands back down to frame your front foot. Spin off your back heel. Step back to down dog. Reach your left leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Ground down through your feet. Slowly rise up to high lunge. Anchor your back heel down. Come into warrior two. Flip your front palm. Reverse your warrior. Feel the nice stretch in your left side body. Slowly come back to warrior two. Start to straighten your front leg. Hinge at your hips. Left arm reaches forward. Slowly start to reach for either your shin or the mat. Come into triangle pose. Remember to leave a micro bend in your front leg. Gaze can be straight forward or overhead, looking up towards your fingers. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. Bend into your front knee, ground down through your feet. Slowly rise back up to warrior two. Windmill your hands back down to the mat. Spin off your back heel and step back to down dog. Come forward to plank. You have the option here to take a chaturanga, so you can lower down, come into cobra or up dog, and exhale, come into down dog. Inhale, reach your right leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Inhale, step your left foot to meet your right. Inhale, hands to shins, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Bring your big toes together. Leave a little space between your heels. Slowly start to sink down to chair pose. Bring your hands either to heart center, out straight in front of you, or they can come overhead. Just remember, if they're overhead, make sure your shoulders are away from your ears. You have the option to back off of this if it becomes too intense, or if you want to go a little further, sink your hips down lower. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, hands to shins, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Step your right foot back, come into low lunge. Step your left foot back, come into down dog. Inhale, left leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for a low lunge. Slowly start to lift off. Bring your right foot to meet your left. Inhale, hands to shins, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Bring your hands together overhead. Interlace your fingers. Keep your pointer fingers together, pointing towards the sky. Thumbs can cross over each other. Take one big deep breath in. And on your exhale, slowly start to tilt to the right side. Feel the stretch in your left side body. And come back to center. Take a big deep inhale. And on your exhale, slowly start to hinge over to the left side. And come back to center. You have the option to stay here, or you can start to bend backwards just slightly. Drawing your fingers towards the back of your mat. Gaze can be overhead. And come back up to center. Bring your hands to heart center. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Step your right foot back. Come into low lunge. Ground down through your hands. Step your left foot back. Come into down dog. Take one deep breath here. And come into plank. You have the option to take a chaturanga here, or you can skip it. We're all going to meet in down dog. So if you lower down, come into cobra or up dog. And exhale, come into down dog. Inhale your right leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Ground down through your right foot. Keep your hands slightly in front of your right foot. Start to lift off your back left leg. Bring it high in the air, come into standing split. Your left toes should be facing down towards the ground. Hugging in through your right hip. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Slowly start to lower your left leg down. Place your left foot next to your right. Inhale, hands to shins, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. We're going to come into tree pose on the left side. So ground down through your left foot, and you can either kickstand your right foot, bring it to the inside edge of your calf or your thigh. Make sure your foot is not anywhere near your knee. Make sure you hug in your hips, hug in towards the midline. Stand up nice and tall. Your hands can be at heart center. You can extend your arms overhead. Whatever feels good for you. Remember to hug in. Stay with me for 3 more deep breaths. Sometimes it's windy outside, sometimes it's windy inside. And go ahead and release your right foot down to the mat. You can shake that out. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, hands to shins, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, bow forward. Step your right foot back, come into low lunge. Ground down through your left foot. Bring your hands slightly forward. Start to lift off that right toe. Come into standing split on the left side. Remember to tighten through your glutes and your hip on the left side. Right toes should be facing down towards the mat. Stay with me for 2 more deep breaths. And exhale, lower your right foot down to meet your left. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. We're going to set up for tree on the right side. Ground down through your right foot. Kickstand the left heel. You can bring your left sole of your foot to your calf or to the inside of your thigh. Both sides could be totally different. Just go ahead and set up for whatever works for you. Remember to keep your sole of your foot away from your knee. Hug your hips in. My balance isn't as good on this side today. Remember to hug your hips in, hug into the midline, tighten your core. Find a focal point for your vision. Arms can be overhead. Hands can be at heart center. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Release your left foot down to the mat. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Heel toe your feet to hip distance. Bring your hands under your feet. We're going to come into Padangusthasana. So the soles of your feet should be on the inside of your palms. Tops of your hands are down towards the mat. Your toes should be in the crease of your wrist. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Let everything hang heavy, your neck, your head. Release your hands, bring your feet down to the mat. Heel toe your feet together to touch. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, swan dive forward. Step back to down dog. Inhale, reach your right leg high in the air. Exhale, bring your right knee to your right elbow. And come back to three-legged dog. Extend your right leg high in the air. Bring your right knee to try to touch your nose. And exhale, come back to three-legged dog. Inhale, bring your right knee to meet your left elbow. Exhale, come back to three-legged dog. Inhale, bring your right leg to the outside edge of your right hand. Toes can be slightly out. You can stay here, or you can bring your right knee down, or your left knee down. We're going to set up for lizard. So you have the option to stay with your left knee off the mat. You can bring your left knee down to the mat. You can bring your elbows down to the mat. Go ahead and set up for your version of lizard here. Your right knee can be hugging in towards your shoulder, or you can go ahead and drop to the outside edge of your right foot, bringing your knee kind of splayed out to the side. Stay here. We're going to stay here for 5 more deep breaths. Soften in. If you brought your elbows down to the mat, come back up onto your hands, untuck your toes, lift your knee off the mat, ground down through your hands, step back to down dog. Lift your left leg high in the air. Exhale, bring your left knee to your left elbow. And come back to three-legged dog. Bring your left knee to try to touch your nose. And come back to three-legged dog. Bring your left knee across your body to meet your right elbow. And come back to three-legged dog. Exhale, bring your left foot to the outside edge of your right hand. Set up for lizard on the second side. You have the option to stay here, or you can drop your right knee down. You have the option to stay here or bring your elbows down to the mat, or a block if you have one. Stay here for 5 more deep breaths. If you brought your elbows to the mat, you can slowly start to rise up onto your palms. Untuck your back toe, bring your knee off the mat, ground down through your hands, step back to down dog. Come up to plank. You have the option to take a chaturanga here. We will all meet in down dog. If you lower down, inhale, come into cobra or up dog. Exhale, back to down dog. Take one more big deep breath here. And take an exhale, sigh, let it all out. Lower your knees back down to the mat. Bring your knees out wide, toes together, sink back, come into child's pose. Keep your left palm down on the mat. Reach your right arm overhead. Exhale, thread your right arm through under your body. Right ear can come down to the mat. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Slowly lift your head off the mat, your chest off the mat, and bring your right arm out to meet your left. Settle in, come back into child's pose. Keep your left palm down on the mat. Extend your right palm down your mat. The left arm overhead. Exhale, thread it through. Bring your left ear back down to the mat. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Slowly start to lift your chest off the mat. Bring your right hand back to meet your left. Sink down to child's pose. Come up to tabletop. And come into an easy seated position. Bring the soles of your feet down to the mat. Ground down through your sit bones. Knees should be pointing towards the ceiling. We're going to come into boat pose. So we're going to slowly start to sink back, bring our knees parallel to the mat. Arms can be extended out forward, or for extra support, you can grab behind your hamstrings. You have the option to stay here. If this is too much, you can lower your feet back down to the mat. Tighten through your core. Start to feel the shake in your core. Stay with me for 3 more deep breaths. And lower your feet back down, come up to seated position. Bring your hands back behind you, fingers pointing towards your toes. Lift your hips off the mat, come into reverse tabletop. Ground down through the soles of your feet. Sink your head back. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And slowly start to lower your hips back down. And walk your hands back up next to your hips. We're going to come into boat pose one more time. So slowly start to sink your shoulders back, lift your legs off the mat. Shins can come parallel to the ground. Arms can reach out in front of you. Remember to breathe here. And lower your feet back down to the mat. Bring your hands behind you. Come into reverse tabletop. Ground down through the soles of your feet. Lift your hips off the mat. Maybe sink your head back. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Lower your hips back down. And slowly lower all the way down to a supine position. Knees can be still pointing towards the ceiling. Hands can be down next to your hips. Ground down through the soles of your feet. Slowly lift your hips off the mat. Come into bridge. Tighten through your glutes. You have the option to stay here, or you can interlace your fingers and slowly start to walk your shoulder blades together. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. If you interlace your fingers, go ahead and release those. Start to walk your shoulder blades out. And slowly lower down 1 vertebrae at a time. Coming down. Bring your hips down to the mat last. You can go ahead and windshield wiper your legs from side to side. And come back to stillness in the middle. We're going to take 1 more bridge. You have the option to do exactly what we just did. If you have a block, you can go ahead and place it underneath your sacrum, and you can come into restorative bridge. You can come into wheel if that is in your practice. Go ahead and set up for whatever you feel like you want to do. We're going to go ahead, lift our hips off the mat, come into the bridge pose of your choosing. You have the option to also bring your hands together underneath you, walk your shoulder blades in towards each other. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And go ahead and slowly lower all the way down. You can windshield wiper your knees from side to side. And come back to stillness. Extend your right leg high in the air and cross your right ankle over your left knee. You have the option to stay here. You can maybe push down on the inside edge of your right knee, or you can reach behind your hamstring on the left side and release your fingers behind your hamstring or on top of your shin and come in to a reclined figure four stretch. Soften in. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And release your feet back down to the mat. Extend your left foot high towards the ceiling. Cross your left ankle over your right knee. You have the option to stay here. Maybe place your hand on the inside edge of your left knee, or you can reach behind your right hamstring, hug in into reclined figure four. Stay here for 3 more cycles of breath. And release your feet back down to the mat. Extend both feet towards the ceiling. You have the option to stay here. You can flip your palms, or you can go ahead and take another inversion. You can come into plow, into shoulder stand, or you can stay here. If you're near a wall, you can also put your legs up the wall. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Hug both knees into your chest. Maybe rock side to side. Hug your right knee into your chest. Extend your left leg out long. Anchor your right arm down to a T. Drop your right knee down to the left side edge of your mat. Look over your right shoulder. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. And slowly come back to center. Extend your right leg out long. Hug your left knee into your chest. Keep your right hand on your left knee. Anchor your left arm down. Drop your knee down to the right side edge of your mat. Gaze over your left shoulder. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And slowly come back to center. Extend your left leg out long. Extend your arms overhead. Reach out, stretch out through your toes and your fingers. And then hug both knees into your chest. You can stay here or maybe rock side to side. Option to stay here or grab the outside edges of your feet and come into happy baby. Stay here for 2 more cycles of breath. And then hug both knees into your chest. At this time, if there's anything else you need to do to complete your practice, I invite you to do so. And when you're ready, go ahead and settle into Shavasana. You can take whatever relaxation pose that feels good for you. Start to settle in. Scan your body. Take notice if anything has shifted, feels different from the beginning of your practice. Take note of your breath and if that has changed at all in the quality or texture. Just start to settle in, relax. Slowly start to deepen your breath. Maybe start to wiggle your fingers and your toes and invite some movement back into your body. When you're ready, you can hug your knees into your chest and roll onto your side. Maybe take a big deep breath here and find your way up to a seated position. You can close your eyes and bring your hands to heart center. I want to take a moment to thank you for showing up today, showing up for yourself, taking time to practice. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me tonight. Namaste.